No, Sophocles, Ajax, Greek tragedy. So, little light theater for the troops.
Yeah, I know I had to read some of Sophocles' material in high school. Some of our listeners out there as well, probably as well. So, and also you, Mr. Coffee, Chris?
Yeah, my name is Chris Coffey. I'm facilitating the performances throughout South Korea this time around, but I'm an actor by trade as well, and I've been in the business for 20 years. And Reggie and I actually graduated from the Yale Drama School together, but we probably have 15 years apart from each other, maybe somewhere around
fantastic.
there. But yeah, Theater of War is it brings Greek tragedy to the troops all around the world, and I'm so honored to be here and be a part of the organization.
And I'm Reggie Cathy, and it's thrilled for an Army brat to come back to an Army base. It's like coming home. And our purpose is to try to facilitate a conversation about post-traumatic stress and suicide. And so where it might sound like it's a really difficult subject, we try to bring as much life and humor to it as we can.
Yes.
Okay, great. And so this is done as a dramatic reading, but it's also a town hall experience environment. So
yeah, I think that's the beautiful thing about it is something about these words written how many years ago?
2,500 years
2,500 years ago
Amazing.
tend to deal with subjects that are really fresh to all of us today, and something about the combination of getting people in a room together, living through the play together, opens up space for conversation. I've always been maybe 8-9 years I've been doing this, and every time there's something in the conversation that just takes my breath away, things that people are willing to share.
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because the way we sort of framework the presentation is that the play was actually written by, yes, a Greek playwright, but he actually was a general in the Greek army who wrote particularly for his soldiers dealing with these issues that are very similar to what troops are dealing with today as well. So we can bridge that gap pretty easily. So the conversation really is about creating, connections through time, connecting the themes and issues that they were wrestling with 2,500 years ago and identifying those today and having a conversation about that.
That's really amazing that something written that long ago, and also, I mean, the culture's changed. A lot has changed in that time frame. And very interesting that it's still relevant today, and you guys are helping to point that out.
It's funny that so much has changed, but war hasn't changed. You know, young men. It's all young men sent by old men, and
Human beings haven't changed.
Human beings
That's
are the same, and it's
now we can Google anything.
For better
it's
or worse.
fascinating to come into a room with 300 soldiers who have been voluntold to be there, and you can see on their faces they're saying, "What is going on? Greece, is the 300?" And then we start, and boom.
Right.
You can see them sit up in their chairs, and then they're listening a little harder, and if we hit it right, they're right with us at the end. And so it's the best thing I've ever done.
A little bit of the Army brat coming through there with the voluntold.
We got two.
They really do know the lingo, and they know their stuff. Well, we'll be back with more from the actors from the Theater of War dramatic reading. You'll hear more hits coming up, and I'll have your weather and exchange rate right after this. That was Fire and Lies. It's 9:27. This is The Morning Who. I'm here with a giggly bunch. This is special guests Reg E. Cathy.
Hey, how are you?
Chris Henry Coffey.
Hi.
And Linda Powell.
Hello.
Actors from today's Theater of War dramatic reading. You can catch that today, 10:30 and 1:30 at the Camp Casey Theater. Now, let's talk about your travels. What has Korea meant to you?
Linda, take it away.
I am so thrilled to be in Korea, especially Camp Casey. My dad he took a hardship tour from our family, 72, 73, and it was here that he was. So when I told him I was coming to Camp Casey, he wanted to know what it would look like, what had changed. He wanted to tell me all his stories. And it turns out when he was here, General Brooks' father was his commanding officer. So
No
it
kidding.
feels like full
circle.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Serendipity.
I didn't know that.
Serendipitous, yeah.
Yeah. I just found that out, and I went, what?
Well, for me, coming back to the Far East, I was from 11 to 14. I spent on Okinawa, where I listened to Adrian Cronauer's "Good Morning Vietnam,"
Right.
and heard, like, the first time I heard the Jackson 5 and James Brown and In-De-Gadda-Da-Vida. I remember we were kids and we would say, "What is an In-De-Gadda-Da-Vida?"
What is an indigo?
No, it's in the Garden of Eden.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
But it's still titled In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida.
In-De-Gadda-Da-Vida.
Right.
And so yesterday when we went up to the DMZ, Camp Boniface,
Boniface. Yeah.
and talked to the guys up there, it was just, we went to the world's most dangerous golf course. It's one hole, but it was surrounded by landmines. And what got
Holy
me
smokes.
about the guys up there was their sense of humor. You know, in this place where it's all this tension, they had the most amazing, dark, irreverent, inappropriate sense of humor that was just amazing. So I couldn't get it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm such a sort of textbook civilian. I really have no connection to the military and no history with it. So for me, just to get a window into this world, particularly in such a hotbed of the world right now, currently, has just been an incredible opportunity and just a real eye-opener.
Excellent, excellent, great. And so you talk about being able to experience this, with the troops and your experiences with the troops, and you appreciated their humor, but also too, when you're doing this performance in this dramatic, what else do you get a sense of from the troops, and what are you getting back from them?
The thing that hits me immediately is how young everybody is. I remember my mom, who worked for the Department of Defense, always used to call any soldiers our boys. No matter what the thing, they were always our boys. And so now with there's so many women, I guess you'd say our boys and girls. But I never really got that until now, because I'm ancient. But everyone seems so young. And then after we do the performance and people get to talking, you hear a 24-year-old talk about his 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and you think Johnny Manziel couldn't stay in the NFL for a year without screwing it up. And you have here you have guys the same age who should be chasing girls and drinking beer, but they have people's lives in their hands, and that affects me deeply. I really don't know how to put it into words.
Well, I think you just did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The thing also for me is especially when the conversations that happen in our town hall after we do the performances, is a sense of support and brotherhood and love
The military family.
that the family has. That each soldier has for the other, and their willingness to be open with each other and to share with each other and lift each other up and rib each other.
Right. Just
like
tease
family,
each other.
the family.
But then sometimes it's like at one of the last ones I did before we came here, one of the soldiers got up and said, people say thank you for your service. And I want to tell them the circumstances around me enlisting were very negative. And so I want to say, why are you thanking me for my service? You should say, I'm sorry for your service. So it's things like that where you get, oh my goodness. Then I don't know what to say except I see you. You know.
I see you, Jake Sully. Yeah, cool Avatar reference.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, there you go. A very connected cast for this performance, Theater of War. Make sure you check it out today at 10:30 and 13:30 at the Camp Casey Theater. We'll have more with them coming up, and there's also plenty of music coming up to keep you going right after your Casey update on AFN Casey, the Eagle, serving America's best. Nick Jonas featuring Tove Lo, Close. You're locked into DJ Bully's Morning Ballyhoo. It's 9:43, and I'm here with the cast of Theater of War, brought to you by Armed Forces Entertainment. It's a dramatic reading using Greek war plays to discuss key town hall subjects faced by service members. Now, exactly what kind of issues are discussed in this dramatic reading?
Yeah, well, we start with the presentation of a play by Sophocles that was an ancient war play written by this general, and that's about 45 minutes of the hour and a half session that we do. So the second half is really the most important part. We use the dramatic reading as a launching pad to have a conversation about subjects that we don't have a lot of outlets for: suicide
Okay.
prevention and post-traumatic stress and reintegration of troops and for their spouses as well, for their communities. So we cover a lot of ground, and we amazingly have found that the play really does touch on a lot of the subjects that people are dealing with today.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the subjects that's near and dear to me is military families, and it's amazing. I play Tecmessa, who's Ajax's wife, and she has a huge role to play in this play. And when we've done some performances that include military spouses in the audience, and
Well, how neat.
the give and take from the conversations that come out afterwards about dealing with service members who are dealing with trauma, service members who are struggling with reintegration.
Right.
The conversations sometimes from those spouses, it's we get a give and take. We get something back from those audiences that feeds into the performance. Every performance we do is taking from the comments we get from the people who've seen the play.
And there's always something new. Things that people like hit them, like honor, the loss of honor, betrayal, the feeling of not being rewarded, someone's getting their due, or being passed over, when everyone knows that the actions that, for instance, Ajax is called the shield because he's always protecting. His men are always protecting everyone else, and so when he gets passed over to get the armor of Achilles, he's just angry and he can't describe the feelings that he has because of the 9 years of war, and so he starts on his downward.
And for a lot of us troops, some of us were able to bring our families, but a lot of us weren't. A lot of us are here
Yeah.
unaccompanied. And we struggle with these kind of feelings, this kind of angst, we want to do our duty, but at the same time, we're struggling. And how does this presentation help with that?
What's always blown my mind is afterwards when the people stand up and they will say, when Ajax said this, and they will quote me back verbatim something
You just said.
from the play.
Right.
That hit them while they were sitting there watching, and they'll stand up and say, when Ajax said this, it reminded me of when this thing happened with my buddy and I was able to be there or I wasn't able to be there. People will stand up and say, I couldn't believe that this play talked about exactly the way I felt when we went on maneuvers and this thing happened to me and my CEO did this to me. So Sophocles was a genius.
Genius. There's a part where he and Tecmessa and Ajax are arguing, and one of the performances at 29 Palms for the Marines, this Marine stood up and said, "Yeah, that hit me, because how do you tell your wife that you really got to kill somebody today? You just can't tell your wife the reason you're feeling bad is you really got to kill someone. You can't do that." And then the little hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and then you see heads nodding and other guys saying, yeah, how do you communicate horror with your wife? You want to keep that away. You want to protect her.
Yeah,
Amazing.
there's so few opportunities that we're given to have these kind of conversations too. And the beauty of theater of war is that it sort of creates the perfect conditions for open and honest conversations that you normally wouldn't have.
You know what's really fun is you see some of the guys come in and you can tell that they don't think that this is going to have anything to do with them.
Yeah, that's so
They've
true.
got their phones in their hands and they're surreptitiously, glancing at something. And then afterwards.
And then I'm sure all too often those guys are the ones that are spearheading some real deep issues or
are most affected. And
Right.
Yeah.
mhm.
And
Or they have
whether
buddies.
whether they get into the deep issues, sometimes it's just fun to have someone stand up and say, I didn't think I was going to like this. I didn't think that watching
go.
Sophocles Ajax was going to have any value for me. I was wrong. It was good. It's a good story,
Right.
in addition to being a useful conversation.
And then you get the guys who come up, Wow, I'm just so glad this wasn't a PowerPoint. This is thank you for coming and making this at least interesting.
Well, there you go. We've been with the cast. I've been with the cast, and you are treasured viewer, listener, viewer, because your voices are so illustrative. They're rich, and this has been a great experience. Glad to
you.
have you guys on the show.
Thank you.
It
We
was
got
really
to shout
fun.
out
Thank
to
you.
Armed Forces Entertainment.
Jody.
and
Jody.
Major Jody Winan. This has been our chaperone, and will
She
be
puts
for the
up with
next couple
us.
of weeks. She's been amazing. So we're big
Air
fans.
Force
Yeah.
So this has been.
Linda Powell.
Chris Coffey.
and Reggie Cathy.
Thank you so much for joining me on The Who this hour. Please head out 10:30 and 1:30 at the Camp Casey Theater for the Theater of War dramatic reading, which is just much more than a PowerPoint. It is a way for you to connect and you to figure out exactly, hey, you're not the only one, and other people have some vital information and some connection to make with you. And head out, connect with them, see this performance. I'll have your weather and exchange rates right after this.
Go Blue.
That's our new tag.